Edwards boarded flight to sign £100 million plus star for Liverpool. One Premier League game down, 37 to go. Liverpool made it a winning start as they so often do on the opening match week of a top-flight campaign, but the victory over Bournemouth wasn't exactly smooth sailing. Indeed, the Cherries exposed structural flaws in our slot machine. Thought it's not worth panicking with Liverpool's defensive fragility solved, at least in part by the signing off Crystal Palace centre-back Marc Guehi. Ryan Gravenberch's return from suspension will add a further layer of balance and coherence to the Red squad, but it's the front line that is being considered an area of importance as we drag into the final stages of the transfer window. With depth lacking, and with that in mind, it would appear and be of little surprise that Liverpool are not yet done at the front end of that field. Liverpool, targeting forward signings, Hugo Ekitike is off to a flyer in a Liverpool shirt, scoring excellent goals against Palace in the Community Shield, and then Bournemouth during the League Panner. But with Luis Diaz and Darwin sold, and with the tragic passing off Dio, Liverpool are left without options across the front line, and it's clear that Slot could hit the jackpot. IFFSG managed to secure the most coveted signature on the market. You would be on money to have guessed that the signature belongs to Newcastle United's Alexander Isak, and according to Arsenal update from Team Talk, Liverpool intend to bid again for the Sweden striker after seeing an opening £110 million offer rejected at the start of August. Isak, 25, is on strike at Tottenham Park, and Fabrizio Romano has shipped in to reveal that the Magpie Shave tried everything to convince him to stay, offering a new contract with airlays clause active from 2026. However, this still isn't deterring Barrett's, with further reports indicating that Michael Edwards has just returned from a trip to Boston, where he discussed the club's efforts to sign the centre-forward with FSG. Isak only wants Liverpool and is fighting hard to get this move, releasing his first statements. Talks over his future commenced on Wednesday evening. How Alexander Isak compares to Hugo Ekitike. Liverpool have potentially broken the British transfer record already this summer, with a £100 million fee paid to Bayer Leverkusen for Florian Wirtz, potentially growing into a record £116 million package through add-ons. Isak would cost north of that, with sources close to Newcastle maintaining that the £120,000 per week talent is valued in the ballpark of £150 million. Stay tuned for more updates on Transfer HQ transfer moves, player signings, and latest news. Don't miss subscribe for more LFC transfer news. Our second news is Liverpool transfer news as Alexander Isak chain cow began amid Marc Guehi standoff. Liverpool transfer news as Alexander Isak continues to dominate the agent Don. There's another claim involving Marc Guehi, the Crystal Palace captain and centre-back. Liverpool is in the middle of a 10-day break between Premier League games, playing Bournemouth last Friday. It is next in action on Monday against Newcastle. But what might happen in the transfer market before then? Liverpool has two targets in mind: Alexander Isak, who has essentially been on strike for Newcastle, and Marc Guehi, the Crystal Palace captain. Here is the Liverpool.com verdict on the transfer gossip to emerge around the Reds today. We begin as ever at the moment with Elidis on Isak, where the chain reaction that could see him land at Anfield this month is still waiting to begin. Isak has broken his silence on wanting to leave Newcastle, insisting in a social media statement that promise she'd been broken. Newcastle followed it up with a statement of their own, insisting he remains under contract. But what has to happen for Isak to move to Liverpool? The Reds will have to up higher opening bid, but that is unlikely to happen if Newcastle signs a replacement. And just like trying to buy a house, there is a chain involved. According to French outlet Le Temps Sport, Neil May is being lined up for a shock return of Brentford. But if Brentford signs Astraker, that could mean that Young Wissa could be allowed to leave. Wissa is wanted by Newcastle United and Limited. All of his social media posts involving the Bees earlier this week in a bid to kick up a fuss. Liverpool home and away strips for the 2025-26 season are the first in their new partnership with Adidas. Fans can order jerseys in the US at Fanatics School or via the LFC online store in both US and across the world. That if Wissa moves to the Northeast, that could potentially mean that Isak is more likely to leave. Newcastle still wants the players to come in, but Wissa isn't of the most likely candidates to arrive. Crystal Palace is still demanding a fee as high as £61 million, £45 million for Marc Guehi. According to The Independent, It says that Liverpool is only willing to go up to around $47 million, $35 million. Earlier this month, Crystal Palace Siasta Parish admitted that his side couldn't afford to lose Guehi for nothing. That would mean the player leaving either now or in January, given his contract expires in 2026. Clubs can sign Guehi for nothing then. However, while Crystal Palace don't want that, it is not in the best bargaining position, having already medied. Clear that it needs to sell. Tottenham and Newcastle have both been in for Guehi in the past, but Liverpool is thought to be his preferred destination. Stay tuned for more updates on Transfer HQ, transfer moves, player signings, and latest news. Don't miss subscribe for more LFC Transfer HQ news. Our last news is Liverpool transfer news. £50 million forward option A in Premier League move. It's currently looking incredibly likely that Liverpool do not bring in any other forwards, despite needing the new recruits in order to properly address their lack of depth in the attacking areas. Alexander Isak is the only real name that remains on our radar, but his situation is more complicated than ever before, with Newcastle requiring 2 strikers to replace him, while no one looks likely to join. Few clubs are willing to let any of their players go as the transfer window closes in 2 weeks. Previously, it was considered that the Reds could look at bringing in a high-quality winger instead of Isak. It became apparent that securing a deal for the Swede was not possible this summer, but rumors with targets have no stopped, and the chances of a high-value move are now pretty slim. But we know that the club has the budget to make a move on someone, and Richard Hughes and FSG love a market opportunity to take advantage of. For £50 million, the Reds might have a solution in mind. Lookman has his bags packed ready for Amov. The Atlanta winger and Miller Lookman has been available all summer and for a long time. It has looked inevitable they would be staying in Italy this season, hoping to move to Inter Milan. However, the negotiations that had been taking place have since collapsed, with the 2 clubs disagreeing on the transfer fee. Inter had offered for €1,000,000, which is around 5 to 15 million less than what Atlanta had been hoping for. The reports in his asking price vary between €50M, €60M. As such, the deal is over according to Fabrizio Romano, with fresh talks still possible, but unlikely at this stage. Lookman is confident that he will leave Atlanta and play elsewhere this season. But in his latest video on YouTube, he said Premier League clubs are aware of the situation, and the CEO of Atlanta, Antonio Picassi, was in England in the last few weeks to negotiate for Rodrigo Muse, but also for the situation of Admila Lookman try and find different clubs for Lookman because they were not able to negotiate an agreement with Inter for striker. As such, it's entirely plausible that Liverpool could have been one of those clubs, and Lookman's record as a striker, a left winger, a right winger, and a second striker makes him an ideal option. He could cover Mohamed Salah at times, which offering help Takati Gakpo, and it's also plausible they could play in conjunction with Hugo Ekitike. Players like him don't come around very often. Of course, Isak might still be heavily on the radar for a January move if the summer isn't his time, but that lack of squad depth could in part be solved by Lookman's arrival, solidifying your forward options. Thanks for watching. That's all for today's transfer update. But the transfer window never sleeps, and neither do we. Make sure to like, comment,